Jordan, and you're streaming the Melodies and Memories podcast with Jillian and Aaron Schreiber.
Welcome to the Melodies and Memories podcast with Jillian and Aaron Schreiber, brought to you by Arlo Revolution. Each week, they connect melodies and memories with fans and singer-songwriters from all genres of life. When all else in life is gone, music will be left to leave the legacy of life's adventures. Please welcome your hosts of the Melodies and Memories podcast, Jillian and Aaron Schreiber.
All right. We're going to test out the sound. How are you guys doing? You guys having a good night tonight? Yeah, Roger, there's normally at the beginning, there's no audio. So we kind of start the show off every week with a little intro video. And you won't have audio because Facebook doesn't like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
They shut us down.
They'll shut us down. There's too much just straight music playing after a while. So
Yeah.
as long as we sound good, guys, give us a thumbs up in the chat. We'll get ready to get rolling here. We are excited for tonight's show. We're a little tired, but we're excited. We drove all the way from Nashville
today.
So we had a big event there yesterday at Live Oak. It was amazing. We'll talk a little bit about that later on in the show, closer to the end. But yeah, sounds good on your end?
Sounds good on my end. Are you guys hearing us out there?
I think it's, yeah, they're saying
I think
good.
so. Okay. All right. Let's do it.
All right. Well, welcome,
Sorry,
guys.
I guess it would help if I read the box. Anyway. All right. We're good to go, right?
Yep.
All right. Where am I? My goodness. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to season 7 of the Melodies and Memories podcast. I'm your co-host, Jillian Schreiber.
I'm your host, Aaron Schreiber.
And our mission tonight is to provide a platform for motivated singer-songwriters, passionate fans, or someone who's making a difference in and around the music community. We hope everyone listening leaves inspired with a positive outlook and begins connecting their own melodies to memories. Tonight, we're presented by our good friends at Arlo Revolution. Cinematic wedding films, music videos, and promos. Find them at arlorevolution.com. One tree planted. For every 1,000 downloads of the show, we plant a tree with one tree planted. Download the show on your favorite podcast app. And Poddex. Poddex is the hottest tool for getting your next great interview questions. Unique interview questions in the palm of your hand. Our on-screen sponsors are Art on a Higher Wire by Joelle. Original and custom artwork inspired by your life moments, treasured photos, and memories. If you're looking for ways to support and sponsor Melodies and Memories music media, then head on over to our Patreon page where tiers start at just $1 a month. The next best way to support the show is to like, share, review, and subscribe. Remember, you can join us live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central on Facebook and YouTube, where you can interact with the show, ask questions, and join in on the live chat with your favorite guests. Visit our website, melodiesandmemories.com, for music news, concert reviews, photos, and playlists, and more.
Got it.
I don't think I took a breath. I don't know what my problem
you rolled through it. Y'all, like I said, I'm very excited for this show tonight. A lot of you guys know me a little over a year and a half ago or so. I finally picked up a camera again and kind of put photography a little bit with this whole media thing that Jillian and I started doing. Because when we started doing reviews, they're like, hey, you want to do photos too? I'm like, man, I haven't touched a camera in 20 years. I'm like,
Yeah.
But it's time to break it out. And I did. And when I kind of got back into
your
it,
passion for photography.
When I got back into it, there's one person that just kind of stood out. I kept seeing these photos and just breathtaking, amazing photos. And always it's like, man, that's the guy right there. And
That's who you want to be.
I told Jillian, I just like this, the inspiration. I told Jillian, one day, I want to get him on the podcast and we'll talk. Well, tonight's night. So I'm very excited. And tonight we welcome in David Bergman for episode 158. David is an accomplished photographer who has had the honor of shooting some of the world's most iconic people and places. He has served as a tour photographer for musical acts such as Bon Jovi and Luke Combs. He has also captured memorable moments for U.S. presidents. He's even photographed at some of the most esteemed sports events in the world, such as the Olympics, World Series, and the Super Bowl. David Bergman's vast portfolio of work showcases a remarkable eye for photography and his unparalleled skill set. Tonight, we are honored to discuss the melodies and memories that make up his journey. So we're going to go ahead and welcome David on. What's up, buddy? How you doing tonight?
Hey there, Jillian and Aaron. Good to be here with you guys. I love this. This is live. It's exciting.
Yeah.
we like to tell the journey, man, kind of like what got you into everything. And we always like to start off with kind of like music questions. We have songwriters a lot. We ask them kind of what got you into music, but I want to know more about the first photo you ever took, buddy. I just wanted to kind of dig down deep and the first time you ever pick up that camera and dug down because I remember my mom, man. She had was it 710 film? Was that the little square, like little rectangle cameras? I think
110 film.
Okay, that was the ones I remember. The first camera I remember picking up.
I had those. Yep, sure.
Man,
I mean, when I was
journey started.
when I was a kid, I had a camera, but it wasn't anything I took seriously. My path was more along the music lines, which I'm sure we'll get into. But I guess first picture, I mean, who knows what the first actual picture, when I was a little kid, but as far as professionally, I do remember getting my first assignment for the Associated Press. And like, that was a big deal. I was 21 or 22 years old, and they sent me down. It was a random event. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. So it was down in Miami. I was still attending the University of Miami at the time, I think. And they sent me down to cover these scientists who were living underwater. They called them aquanauts. And they literally had lived underwater for months at a time. And I think it was an assignment that none of their staff photographers wanted to do. It was way down in like the Keys, and nobody wanted to drive down there. And it was just kind of not a big glamorous assignment. And I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. I'd be happy to go down there. And so I went down and made that picture. And it ran in USA Today, which this was the early 90s. And that was a big deal. That was, to have it run, it was this big. And that's sort of started me on this path where I was like, that's cool, and that's really when I started to really pursue it as a serious career.
So is this after college then? Because you went to college for music production. So you went to Berkeley for music and music production. So kind of really, then you transferred over to Miami. But how did you pick between the two? What made you kind of finally go down the photography path and kind of know that's what you want to do? Because music, you were a drummer. You did some other stuff in the background of music. Just kind of tell me what led you there.
Yeah, I was really all music in high school. I was a traditional band geek, marching band, concert band, jazz band. I taught in beginning band. And then I went to Berkeley, and I wanted to be a producer. I really wanted to be a music producer. I loved hanging out in the studio. I would just sit, any chance I had, I would go hang out in music studios and just watch and learn. And this was in the tape days, they were slicing tape with a razor blade. And I loved that. And so I went to Berkeley for music production. And what was interesting was I had a camera, but again, I had no idea really what I was doing. And I would take some pictures of my friends' bands when they were performing. And that was fun for me. I didn't really have that drive to perform. I didn't really want to be a professional drummer. But again, I was studying production. And I would take those pictures, and then I would make prints of those images. They were black and white. And I didn't know an aperture from a shutter speed. And then I would put them together in a little album. And all the guys from the dorm would come to our room, and they wanted to see the pictures, and then they wanted to buy them.
Oh, wow.
So for $1 a piece, they were buying these little 4x6 prints. And I was like, this is a lot of fun. And then I transferred to the University of Miami for a million different reasons. And I was music first there, but I stumbled into the school newspaper with my camera, and I was like, hey, how does this work? And they gave me a roll of film and said, go shoot. And if there's something interesting, we'll give you an assignment. And I came back the next week with a roll of film. We processed it in the darkroom, and then I was hooked. And they gave me an assignment. I guess the photo editor saw something he liked, and that's where it all began. And I just began, I started shooting for the school paper, and I became the photo editor and the editor-in-chief of the yearbook, and on and on. And I sold my drums and bought lenses at that point, and I was hooked. That was the end of it for me.
Cool. I know how that is. You got to sell one thing to do everything. It's kind of like jumping hobbies a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what? Nobody it's 18 years old has any idea what they want to do. There's no way.
So I got to ask you, music was your first love. Who were you listening to growing up? I mean, who, like as a kid, man, who was the kind of some of your favorite acts out there?
Yeah. I was an 80s kid. So this was like very traditional 80s rock. My first concert was Journey,
nice.
Bands like Styx. All those kinds of bands back in, the traditional sort of 80s pop bands and rock bands or Rush, those kinds of bands are what really is in, in your teen years, whoever you're listening to in that time, I think that sticks with you your whole life.
Yep.
And so those bands, I've seen Journey still to this day, probably, 12 or 15 times. So
we have the same love for Kiss. My first concert, I was 15 in 97. I went and saw Kiss for my first concert. Now that they say this final, it's done. We're digging for New York City tickets from Madison.
I know. I live in New York City, so this is where I am. I can't believe those last two shows are going to be here. I don't know. Tickets are probably going to be really hard to come by.
They're outrageous already.
These were like 400 tonight. We're already really looking. There's 4 of us. So I'm like, man.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they'll release it on video after the fact.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But over the years, just kind of getting back into the photography, you photographed 8 U.S. presidents, the Queen of England from a little distance, I heard, and then Fidel Castro. Has there ever been a situation you've been in photography or when you're out doing this that you didn't feel safe? I mean, you felt like, I don't know, it felt unsafe in a way.
Yeah, not probably at any of those situations, because when you have somebody like that, obviously security is going to be, way raised. The security level is going to be raised up more than any place else. But back in my early days, in my 20s, I was a newspaper photographer. I got a job at the Miami Herald, and I covered news, sports, features, entertainment, portraits, food, fashion, a little bit of everything. But in Miami in the 90s, there were some rough times there, and so I made my way into riots and protests and things like that. In third world countries, again, you mentioned Fidel Castro. I was down in Nicaragua for that, and I covered. I came in after a hurricane, and there were literally dead bodies everywhere, and that kind of stuff. I never really enjoyed that kind of. I mean, who would? But I'm glad there are people who are passionate about doing that kind of work and bringing that true photojournalism to the public view. Not really my thing, but in the newspaper world, you kind of have to do whatever they tell you to do. And so, quite a few times I was in situations like that. And really, when I went freelance and moved to New York City in 2001, and that kind of shaped my desires to stay away from the news and the photojournalism world, because I felt like I'd done that and I really didn't want to do it. So I stuck with fun stuff, sports and concerts and, entertainment and more of that kind of stuff. And it's way more fun and not as dangerous.
Yes, for sure.
Well, you covered 5 Olympic Games, was it 2 Super Bowls, or World Series, Daytona 500, and so much more. What's easier for you to kind of shoot when it comes to music or sports? Which one did you pick over those?
I mean, photographically, they're very similar. I mean, when I teach photography now, when I teach concert photography, I teach it in this pretty much the same way I photographed sports. But I think, the sports, it's kind of I don't want to say it's a young man's game, because certainly I could still do it at this point. But when you're younger, you don't mind running up and down the sidelines in a blizzard, or in a downpour, right? I mean, the weather is always an issue in sports. And it's a lot of running around, and it's all that. Concerts, it's a little more, most of them are indoors, although this year we're doing a bunch of stadiums outdoors. But so I will have to deal with weather again. But for the most part, concerts are indoors. It's a smaller area. Everything's a bit more in one location. So it's a bit, I'm not going to say it's easier. I think it's just as hard to make great pictures, but as far as the logistics of it and that kind of stuff, I think sports is more challenging.
Yeah, I would definitely feel that, because I've done a little freelance on the sports side. I'm like, man, I'm trying to run and keep up with soccer players at times, and I can't do that.
They line up for the game-winning field goal at the Superbowl, and you might have to run 100 yards to get to the back of the end zone in between third down and fourth down. So I did it back in the day, and I feel like I could still do it if I had to, but I'd much rather go from one end of the stage to the other end of the stage.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
And honestly, when I was researching and studying for this, I read a lot about kind of, you had a couple covers of Sports Illustrated stuff, but one of the things that stuck out the most to me was Daytona 500. You got one of the last pictures of Dale Earnhardt, on the last race. Because you were shooting digital at the time, right? You're one of the first ones shooting digital, and that's what's brought you there? Or how did that start?
I was. Yeah, I mean, I had just moved to New York City, and Sports Illustrated, I knew some of their editors, and I had done a few freelance assignments for them when I was in Miami still. But now I was in New York, and they were giving me some work. And the very first big assignment they sent me was to the Daytona 500. And let me be clear, I'm not a NASCAR photographer. I mean, there are people who've been shooting this for decades at that time, and we're really good at it. They literally sent me down there because I was the first digital photographer to work at Sports Illustrated, and they were still shooting film at the time. So they sent me down and they said, you know what, shoot film on Sunday, which is the big race day. And then on Monday, if anything happens, if there's a rain delay or something and it pushes to Monday, the magazine at the time, Sports Illustrated, it was a weekly magazine, and Monday's their day where everything closes, right? They shut down, they finish the magazine on Monday. So they don't really get anything in the magazine that happens on Monday, unless it's a national championship or something like that, where they hold the presses, as they say. So they sent me down and they said, just in case, it probably won't happen. Well, on race day, I was shooting film, And yes, I just randomly, I'm not going to pretend that I knew exactly what I was doing because I was not a race guy. I was just photographing all of the drivers in pit row as close to, right before the race started as I could. And I happened to make a picture of Dale Earnhardt putting on his helmet, getting in his car right at the beginning of that race. And as many people know, that year, 2001, was when he died on the track on the last lap. And it was horrible and horrific and, just such a sad situation. We didn't even know he had died when we left the track after the race. And then they made, we found that out. We heard it on the radio or something. And so the next day, the magazine said, go back to the track. All the film photographers had left, the magazine's film photographers had left. And I went back by myself to the track and made pictures of fans putting flowers on the track and, very respectful images like that. And I transmitted it into the magazine. And this was 2001. So I think I got 3 JPEGs in from a hotel, lobby on a phone line. Right. And it ran in the magazine and they were all, the magazine, the editors were blown away that they got a picture that happened at 1:00 on Monday into the weekly magazine. So that really began my career at the magazine, shooting digital. I wound up training all of their legendary staff photographers to photograph, to work with the digital equipment, which they had never touched in their life. And I had been using it for a few years at that time. So I came in, knowing at least how to manage that stuff. So so that really started. I was shooting film and digital for the next few years. And then eventually the magazine transitioned to 100% digital. And then I just became one of their regular contributors. So it worked out kind of nicely for me on an unfortunate situation.
I think the last time we've done anything on film was probably our wedding.
Yeah.
Everything was digital.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how technology has advanced in not that far, amount of time.
It wasn't that long ago. And you know what? Let me just interrupt that for the photographers who are listening. I'm really glad. I mean, I hate to sound like, get off my lawn, you damn kids, but I'm really glad my early career was on film because it really taught me how to work with, exposures and things like that. And I couldn't rely on seeing the pictures right away. And you had to learn. I mean, I was shooting for Sports Illustrated when I was shooting film. They were shooting chromes, which is slide film, which has no latitude at all. So you have to nail your exposure perfectly. And I'd shoot 50 rolls of film in a game. And, I'm out there with a light meter between every play, trying to read the light and making adjustments. And you don't really know, right? So, and then the magazine would call you and say, yeah, you nailed it, or yeah, you didn't, right?
Yeah.
And so, so then digital, I never really worried about. I never had to go through that learning curve of exposure and all that because I already had it down.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask you, do you have boxes full of photos just laying around your house?
Absolutely. In my studio, here. Yeah. Every few years I say, you know what, I'm going to digitize that stuff. And I start to go through it and I do a few of my selects and, and then I go, oh, you know what, I'm going to finish this tomorrow. And then 2 years later, oh, I should do that again. Yeah. It's a real problem with this period we're in where there still is a lot of film that's never been digitized. And it's a whole generation of photography that is going to disappear if it's not digitized. So I'll definitely get mine done at some point. And if anybody out there wants to take on that job.
My mom's slowly starting to go through all her family photos and stuff. She has thousands of photos and she's like, this is going to take me forever.
She's
so,
going through all the negatives.
Yeah, you got to do it. It's so important. You just got to buckle down and get it done.
Yeah, her and her negatives. She'll go through negatives and then
sending us screenshots of everything.
Send it to us. I'm like, I don't know what. All right, we're good.
Of negatives, yeah, perfect. Yeah.
So finally, you got into music. You spent 10 years with Bon Jovi. Now, growing up, you said you loved 80s music. I'm sure you listened to some Bon Jovi in the 80s.
Of course.
Was that kind of like a full circle moment when you started working for him?
Kind of, yeah. The craziest moment for me was, I had photographed at this point where this happened. I'd probably photographed 200 or 300 Bon Jovi concerts over the years. And I had seen it so many times and I know every song, and all that. But there was one moment where they were in the studio and I was just doing behind the scenes pictures. They were rehearsing for a tour and working on a new album. And it was literally just the band and they were all around the room. And I decided to sit in the middle and do kind of a 360 picture, sort of a panoramic. And I'm doing this picture and John Bon Jovi just said, you know what, and they never did this at rehearsal, but for some reason he goes, let's just do prayer, meaning living on a prayer. Right. And they never really rehearsed that song. Obviously he's been doing that song for decades, but for whatever reason, he wanted to run through it. So they start going into this song. And there was just this moment where I put my camera down for 10 seconds and I kind of looked around and I was like, what's happening right now?
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of the room, and this is not like a Bon Jovi cover band playing Living on a Prayer. This is Bon Jovi playing Living on a Prayer, and I'm the only other one in the room. I mean, there were people out in the studio, but it's literally like a private concert just for me. And that moment, I was like, this is crazy. Like, if I could have told myself this when I was, 14 years old, I wouldn't have believed it. It's kind of insane. So yeah, I don't take that for granted. At every concert I shoot, I still try to take 30 seconds at some point, and I put my cameras down at my side and I just look around and I just go, man, this is awesome. Like, especially at a stadium, I did this at football games. I did this, whenever I'm surrounded by, whether it's 500 people or 60,000, and just look around and take it in and breathe it in for a second and go, there are all these people here and we're all together enjoying this same moment. We're all listening to the same music, and everybody's got their own story, that, I don't know what that person's doing, and that guy and that woman, and that they're on a date and he's with his daughter, and, but it's just, we're all here together enjoying the music. And it really, it makes me emotional sometimes just to sit down, and I try not to take it for granted. And I try to do that at every single show, and just take 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and just look around and take it in. And I think it's really makes you appreciate everything that's going on.
Absolutely.
I feel the same way with that, because I've gone to so many concerts since I was 15 and I saw that Kiss show. I don't know how many. I've probably in close to 1,000 concerts I've been to. I mean, I've seen Eric Church alone over 150 times. That's all of our stuff behind us. I've been a diehard Eric Church fan for years. Yeah. It kind of just got me back into music. But just being like someone that go to concerts all the time, then being a photographer, or do photography at them now. I need a new challenge, and that's why I wanted something different out of concerts. Like, I was like, all right, I'm always seeing concerts like in person, but now I get to see them through a lens and kind of create these moments, these memories from these shows. And that's why I love, because it's a different type of concert for me now when I go to these shows.
A different perspective.
So, perspective for sure.
Absolutely.
So you were one of 3 people allowed in Bon Jovi's dressing room, which is crazy. You got to go shoot family vacations. How did you, over this time, you shot over 200 shows with the guy, but how did you build that bond at first with him to be one of 3 and be allowed out on the road like that?
Yeah, this job really, I mean, obviously you've got to be a decent photographer. That's sort of the baseline, but there are a lot of great photographers out there. The job really, I often say, is to know when to be in the room and when not to be in the room, right? You're dealing with celebrities, you're dealing with people who have a lot more important things going on. And, even though I'm inner circle and I know that I can go into the dressing room, that doesn't mean I'm going to go in and be like, hey, buddy, what's happening? Let's have a beer. That's not how it works, right? I've got to know when. I got to pick my moments. I've got to know when to go in and when not to go in. So I think that's you just develop the trust from my clients. And that's really what it's about. It's really about trust at this level. I mean, at any level, whether you're doing, wedding photography or corporate headshots or concerts, if you have that access to people and you're dealing one-on-one with people, they have to trust you. I'm crafting their image, right? I mean, I have a lot of power in the images that I take and the images that I pick. So I don't take that for granted. And I know, I have to know when to be there and when to leave, and when to take the picture and when not to. So, I overhear sensitive conversations, and I've never shared any of that stuff, right? So that's just, I think over time, you develop a reputation. And the Bon Jovi thing, that story about the 3 people, that was funny because I had only started with them maybe a few months earlier, and I was just really shooting the shows. I was backstage, but I wasn't really inner circle. I was just inner circle. And I was sitting outside his dressing room waiting because I needed to take a picture of him with I think it was a guitar they were giving away for a charity event, and he had to sign it. And so they gave me the guitar, and they said, oh, just have him sign it. And then you need to get a picture of him signing it for so we could have proof that it's a legit thing. And so I waited outside the dressing room, and he was in there. I don't know what he was doing. He was warming down his voice, which he always does. I don't remember if he had a guest in there or, some an NFL owner or a congressman or whoever it was that he hangs out with. And then it was a while. It was probably like an hour and a half. And this was after a show. And I was just sitting outside his dressing room, not complaining or anything. And he finally came out to go. And I was like, oh, can I get you to sign this? And he was like, you've been waiting out here the whole time? And that's when he said that line. He said, there are 3 people who can come into my dressing room unannounced, and you're one of them. And I was like, okay, yes, sir. And again, that was if I had something like that in the future, I would go in. If I felt like he was available, I would go in and get that done, but without waiting out there for an hour and a half. But that's just a trust that you develop over time. And that's always my goal, is not only of the artist, but the crew, everybody on the road. I'm an extra person, the photographer. I'm just documenting what everybody's doing, but I don't make the show. The people who are making the show, I need to stay out of their way, and I need to earn their trust. The guitar techs, all the techs, all the engineers, everybody, they need to do their job without me in their way. But I still need to be in there to get those pictures. So it's that balance of, they see that I know how to act, I know how to stay out of their way, but still get what I need. And over time, as you hang out with people, they get to know you better, and then it's easy. Then once you've got that trust, then it's easy going from there on out.
Oh man, I definitely feel that. And the family you're out with right now, I bet you has probably been unlike anything other. You're out with Luke Combs right now. You joined him in 2019. Now, when it comes to country artists and rock artists, who's easier to shoot, and who's easier to tour with?
Oh boy. Remember I said that I don't share some of the things that I know.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No, but I'll say this, it's definitely a different vibe. This is my first country tour. I've always done rock tours. Luke and his team, his management, the crew, everybody has been so amazing. It's definitely the country world, as I've seen, between, my experience with Luke and other artists I've met and worked with. It's a bit more casual than the rock tours are. Like, everybody's just like hanging, there is a lot more of a hang environment than there is with a rock tour. Feels more like a business, right? Which it is. They're all businesses, of course, but it's very business oriented, and everybody's, the Jovi tour was unlike any I've ever done. It was private jets and the fanciest hotels and the nicest hotels and nicest restaurants in the world. But with that comes a bit of, you have to act properly, right? I mean, you're representing the band, you're representing the organization. Same thing with Luke, but it's definitely a bit more casual. We're drinking out of red Solo cups, instead of wine glasses, right? Yeah. So I don't know I can't say which is more fun, because they're different in so many ways. And I love both of them. And again, the crews are always the best. I mean, at this level, when you're doing arenas and stadiums, the crews, the people I'm with the most are just top notch, the best in their field. And so it doesn't really matter what the music is. I've done tours with Sarah McLachlan and Gloria Estefan and, all kinds of different genres of music. But the crews, the guys and girls who are on the road all the time, they're the same everywhere you go. And when you get on the tour bus at the end of the night, those are the people you're really hanging out with. And so I just love the environment. I love touring. I love the attitudes of the people who are on the road. Anybody who's sort of given up their life at home to do this job, we all kind of have that same mentality, just to get stuff done. And, you work hard and then you play hard as well. So it's really, really enjoyable.
And I'm sure, especially now, being with a country artist is a lot easier for you with family and being able to do other stuff too, because I know they don't tour as heavy as rock, or you're not going for 7 or 8 months at a time. They're more like with Luke this year, you're going to be gone over the weekend, which is going to be phenomenal. So
totally. Yeah, it's still very weird to me, because I'm so used to touring, like you said, for months at a time. And the country people, they call them weekend warriors. They like to be home during the week. So our Luke's tour this year, we're doing with 16 stadiums in North America before we leave the country, and it's only on Saturdays, which is crazy. So we fly in and fly out. Now I go both ways on how I feel about that, because yes, it's great to be home during the week, and yes, I can, I do other things, and I have time at home. But at the same time, touring, you never really get into that groove of being on a tour, right? Like when you're out on the road and you get into that sort of, your routines and all that kind of stuff, you never really get into that. This is fly in, do the show, and fly out. So it's a little bit different, but it's got pros and cons, however you slice it.
No, everything always does. So
yeah. Right.
But one thing that's really cool while you're out with Luke that you're doing, that you've been doing for the last couple of years, is Shoot from the Pit. You got to tell me a little bit how this came about, because honestly, a couple of people have commented on it in the chat tonight. And I know a few people that actually have been out there and been able to do this workshop with you. But it's phenomenal that you do this for photographers, because I'm able to go out. I use the Live Nation Media portal a lot. I get the 3 songs and this and that. But for someone to be able to go out and shoot an entire show and get to learn that day, it's amazing to be able to do that. So
so this is really, it's really been a dream come true for me, because I have been trying my whole career really to bring respect back to tour photography. And one of the ways I do that is by teaching other people to do it, and also to give people that experience. So a lot of my friends in the sports world, they run workshops where they, so let's say you spend the day and they teach you how to shoot a football game, and then you actually get to shoot a football game. Those are very rare, but fashion photographers might do that, or you spend a week at a vineyard and you have beautiful models and you get to do that. So I had always wanted to do that with concerts. I get emails all the time from people saying, how do I get to shoot a concert? And I always say, you can't really. I mean, if you work for the band or you're a member of the media, and like you said, as a member of the media, you get 3 songs from one position and then you're out and they kick you out. So I wanted to give this experience to people. So I created this Shoot from the Pit, and it's been what it is it's a photo workshop, right? It's not about getting access to the show. You're not going to meet Luke. You're not hanging out with Luke. You're spending the day with me. You get to hang with me, right? So it's a photo workshop. I'm genuinely teaching all day long. It's 4 to 5 hours of me teaching. And you're going to get tired of hearing my voice, but it's, we have our own room backstage, our photo room that we get to leave all our gear in. And that's where I teach. And then that night you get to put everything into practice and actually get to shoot the show, and you get to shoot the whole show. And it's just unheard of. I can't thank Luke and his management team enough for allowing me to do this, because it's unheard of. It's never existed. I don't know anybody else in the world that does this, because you need somebody who, has a bit of a reputation and can teach. And I've done a lot of workshops over the years and speaking gigs, and I'm a Canon Explorer of Light, and I have all that going for me. And then to be able to have a band who allows me to do this and allow, 5 or 10 photographers, depending on the size of the venue, to come along with me and actually shoot the whole show is just unheard of. So it's just this perfect storm of everything that came together to allow me to do this. And the most satisfying part of the day for me is at the very end of the night, when everybody comes back in the room at the end of the show, and I always say, how was that? And they go, oh my God, that was the most amazing experience of my life. Right. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not exaggerating that. People write me all the time and they say, it was the most fun I've ever had. And it was just because it's, you shoot concerts, and it's so fun. It's such an adrenaline rush, and it's a great experience. And again, with the skills that I teach you during the day, hopefully to make really great images that night, it all comes together. And then people come back because they say, oh, I didn't quite do it the way I hoped it would happen. And then they come back and they do it over and over. So it's been really satisfying for me to be able to give this experience to people who otherwise would never have the opportunity.
Well, this is amazing that you do that and give back that way, because like I said, they have that opportunity to be able to shoot a whole show like that. And I do a lot of the smaller shows here in Chicago. I'm based in Chicago. And a lot of the smaller acts, I could get full access. But when we get to like Tinley Park and like the amphitheaters and stuff out there, there's the 3 songs. We got to just shoot Luke Bryan this summer, which was cool. But you get the photo pit. But yeah, you get the one section. But when you go with Luke, and when you do shoot from the pit, you get every angle. You can go all the way up top. You can go anywhere in the stadium, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm teaching. I'm teaching you, don't just stand in one place the whole night, because then all your pictures are going to look the same. So move around. You have the opportunity to shoot the whole show. I don't want you to just stand in one place all night. Yeah. And this is how I shoot. I mean, I'm modeling it off of the way I shoot. And I give people just enough information where I also want you to bring your own creativity to it. So I'm going to give you the foundation, but then I love seeing what people do, because people come up with pictures that I've never done before. Right. And I love that. A landscape photographer might come in and shoot it differently. Of course, they're going to shoot it differently than I do as a sports action photographer. A wedding photographer is going to do it differently. A portrait photographer is going to do it differently. So I love that. I love seeing what other people come up with, when they post stuff after the fact. And that's a whole lot of fun. We've also got a private Facebook group that after people attend, they get access to that group, and we share our pictures, and the people talk about the experience, so we can keep in touch. And I'll comment on things if I feel like I can add something. And so it's just been a whole lot of fun. There's really been no downside at all to it.
Oh, okay. I think we lost you for a quick second.
Yep, there we go. We're back.
It's like, we lost him for a quick. Yeah, that's definitely. If you guys, a couple people in the chat have done this multiple.
One day.
Yeah,
You'll see him there one day.
Yeah, I'll definitely want. I have to check this out.
For sure. He's dying. Absolutely
I've got
dying.
30 of them this year. So all around the world. This is the first year I'm doing them outside of North America. So we've got US, Canada, stadiums in the US and Canada. And then we've got Europe, New Zealand, and Australia. So I just announced those a few days ago. So I'm excited to do them out of the country for the first time.
is this your first time doing shoot from the pit in a stadium? Because I know you done them in the arenas. Is this your first time in a stadium?
Yeah, we did 4 stadiums last year. I changed those. I made those just an advanced workshop where people had to actually apply to get in, because I didn't want absolute beginners. I wanted, people who didn't have as much experience to go to the arenas where it's a little more controlled, because stadiums are tough. It's a huge area. It's a huge space. But this year we're doing 16 stadiums, so all are welcome. So it'll be fun this year.
That's amazing. Now, you've been out, like I said, with Bon Jovi and Luke. Now, when you get any one-offs or when you used to shoot for multiple acts, did you ever, because this is something I do now, if I find out I got a media pass to shoot an act, I'll go on YouTube sometimes. I'll find out what the first 3 songs are. I'll study them a little bit just to I know to angle myself or where to go. Did you used to do that when you would kind of do different bands at the time, or what would you?
Absolutely. Research is huge. I mean, the more information you can do, if a band hires me and they want, let's say, to do something like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're showing that.
That one. I had to show that one.
It's about the journey. It's about the journey.
It's got the year on it, so you can see how the hair. So I still got my hair.
It's looking good.
Not quite as long, but what were we talking about? Oh yeah, research again. So that distracted me quite a bit. Yes, absolutely. Research is huge. If a band hires me and they say, oh, just do the one show, I always say, let me do like 3 of them, because the more you see the show, the better pictures I'm going to make. The more I know, the better I can do. And yes, if it's just a one-off, absolutely, I will go on YouTube. I will go look at other pictures too. I'll look up what other press photographers, what the pictures they've made, and definitely watch the show. Because the more you know about a musician's tendencies, you can look and see if there's pyro, if there are things that are going to happen in the beginning, and you can put yourself in position. Bon Jovi did a show where they don't usually do pyro, but there was one show that we were opening the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey where the Giants and the Jets play. And it was the first concert there. And they had pyro for the first time. Now I had this advantage because I was working for the band, but I actually got a hold of the guy who designed the pyro show. I mean, he was there on site, and I sat down with him for probably 20 minutes, and he showed me the map, and he showed me exactly where the pyro was going to go off and when it was going to go off. And I knew all that information. So I could put myself in position to make that picture. It's only going to happen once, and that's it. Right. So anything you can do. It's the same with sports. It's the same with weddings, anything you can do to put yourself in position so that the fewer surprises, the better you're going to be. We can let the people who are involved be surprised, but I want to know everything. I talk to everybody. I want to keep in touch with the artists, the crew, every single person, so that if something crazy is going to happen, if I know about, the end of a tour, they always do pranks on each other. Sometimes the opening act will do. I go and talk to them the day before or the day of, and I say, hey, look, I will promise I will not tell anybody, but can you tell me what you're going to do just so I can get good pictures of it, right?
Yep.
If I'm out of position and I miss it, that's it, right? So that usually works really well. And again, you earn that trust. They know that I'm not going to, if I say I'm not going to say anything, I'm not going to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you're in position to make better pictures than anybody else, because you have that advantage of knowing what's going to happen.
I love that. See, I'll go to a band's or the artist's Instagram page and I'll see what they posted in the past. I'll be like, all right, what kind of style they post, or what kind of angles they posted? They like black and white. What kind of photos they like? And that's why I always kind of keep in my mind when I'm out shooting is kind of like, all right, this is what they posted in the past, and maybe they see mine and mine are kind of similar or whatever. They'll post mine too. And I've had a couple, like Jason Isabel shared one of my posts over the summer, which was amazing, which
nice.
Still can find on his Instagram page. I think that's one of my favorite ones so far. So
awesome.
all right.
Congrats. Yeah, that's cool. Congrats.
Well, I appreciate that, man. But that's one of and that's always like when you feel, I guess, accomplished when you get that share or that like on there from the artist, I guess, in my position when it comes to being a photographer.
Totally. I still love it when an artist, even if I'm working for them, when they post my stuff, I love it. I mean, how can you not love it? I'm not going to, I'm going to try to be cool about it. But, when I was working for Sports Illustrated and I saw, I get on an airplane and somebody's reading the magazine and I have the cover. It's like, I want to go over and go, excuse me, by the way,
That's fine.
You don't do it, but,
One of the coolest things, just kind of wrap up this little segment here is when kind of studying an artist that you do is you have in-ear monitors. So you are linked in to Luke Combs' band, crew, and everything. So you do know if someone's going to go run off and have a longer solo, if Rob Williford is at the end of the ramp just jamming out, to zoom in on him or whatnot. What kind of led you to kind of finally decide to do that? I know those in-ears are not cheap. for one.
Yeah, I started that a while ago. I think I started that, might have been with Bare Naked Ladies. I think
Okay.
I toured with them in the mid to late aughts, 2006, 7, 8, 9, something like that. And I think I started it then. I don't remember what inspired me the first time. I think maybe there was just a pack sitting there, and I was like, hey, can I pick this up? Because they all use wireless packs. And at that time, I didn't have quality in-ear monitors. I just had my earbuds, but my wired earbuds, and I plugged them in. And during the show, I could hear, not only am I hearing the show, it's good for hearing protection because I always tell people, my workshop people, I would say, bring earplugs. But it's good for your protection. I can turn the volume down. And yes, I realized quickly that all the band members have talkback microphones, and they can talk to each other. They can talk to their techs. Something's going good, something's going bad. I know it. And even if I'm way up in the upper level shooting a wide shot, like you just said, if something's going on, I know, and I can hear it. Even if I'm in an elevator, going upstairs or somewhere, I can hear what's going on. So as soon as I pop out of the elevator, I can run out and get that picture. So that's been huge. So then, I did invest in in-ear monitors. I've had a couple pairs over the years now, and they're molded to my ears, and the band just knows, our monitor tech just knows to put out a pack for me. It's got my name on it, and beginning of the show, I grab it and I'm good to go. So that's been nice to. It's kind of my little secret weapon that people don't know about, because it really does help me to make better pictures. It goes along with what we were just saying. The more information I have, the more I know, the better chances I have of making good images.
So when you first started shooting concerts early on, did you ever have a gig that just you felt like on the way home just didn't go your way, that you're like, what, I gotta get them next time? That I just had, just was not my day. I had one of those just recently, and
that was terrible.
I left there. I just knew on the way home that every picture I took was just probably the worst. Like, I don't even have a gallery right now because of this show from like a couple weeks ago. Because the lighting was really bad. I couldn't adjust the lighting, and I just had that off night. But did you ever have a night like that?
No, never. Absolutely not. It's never happened.
Perfect every time, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course, some nights are better than others. For me, usually it's when I just miss a picture, right? When it's not, look, I'm at the point where I don't think I'm going to go the whole night and not make something, right? I think I'm going to make at least a baseline level of photographs every night. But, there's things that happen that annoy me, so Luke, for example, Luke has a couple of things that he does in his show that he does every night, or almost every night, right? He shotguns a beer. Sometimes at the beginning of a song, he'll drop kick. He'll kick his red Solo cup of Jack and Diet. He'll kick it into the crowd, right? And that's always a great image. And I want to get something different of that every night. And there are nights when we did this last tour we did was on a 360 stage. So it was a square, but it was in the middle of the arena. And they walk all the way around the whole stage. And I can't be on all four sides at all times, right? Mm-hmm. And I used to jokingly say, I think Luke would see me and he would just go to the other side of the stage, because there were times where I know it's coming up where he's going to shotgun the beer, and because that always happens at the same point in the same song. And I would be right there and he'd be there. And then all of a sudden he would just go to the other side of the stage, like 180 degrees, and do it over there. And I'm sitting there just going, really? I got nothing, So that kind of thing happens. It happens all the time, not all the time, but it happens. But what can you do? I mean, luckily I'm in the position where I'm going to be able to shoot the show tomorrow night. I can try again tomorrow. So, that's the fun for me, is trying to make something different every night, trying to find new angles, trying to figure out a different way to do it, make a picture that's 1% better than the one I made yesterday. And if I do that every night, I'm going to be just fine.
You got to always continue to challenge yourself too. I mean, that's how I feel like every show I go to is a new challenge, and just see what comes out of it. So, totally. All right. Well, we're going to move to our fun part of the night, our sponsored by Pod Deck section. So earlier we pulled a couple cards. What did your 15-year-old self imagine you'd be doing right now?
15 years old. So I would have been in high school. Yeah, I would have been a music producer. No question. I was 100% sure that's what I was going to do.
All right. If you had one piece of advice to someone just starting out, what would it be?
Ooh, a photographer just starting out, I'd say more important than learning photography, you're always going to be growing as a photographer and getting better and working on your craft. I still am. I'm thinking of going to a workshop later this year on my own. More important than that is having a solid business foundation. If you want to make a living at this and you want to make money and support yourself as a photographer, you've got to understand business. You've got to know how to read a profit and loss. You've got to know, how your cost of doing business. You've got to know marketing and advertising and all of that kind of stuff. And if you don't have that foundation, it's a hobby, and it's fine. Photography is a great hobby, but if you want to make it a business, you've got to have that solid business foundation. Take business classes. That's my number one advice.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's one thing I failed to do is take business. I have a marketing degree, so.
Oh, there you go. You're halfway there, but you can learn it later. But it's much harder after you've already established yourself as a photographer to then go back. If you're the free photographer, to then try to start to charge your clients that you're already working for free, that's really hard to do. You really kind of have to start over and find new clients to start making money if you're going to do that. It's never too late, but if you have that foundation at the beginning, you're going to be much better off.
Oh, I love that. So you like to stay busy all the time. What does the rest of your 2023 look like? Other than the huge Luke Combs Stadium tour, what else do you do to stay busy kind of when you're not on the road with him?
Yeah, so that's about 6 months of the year that we're going to be on that tour. I also do a bi-weekly web series for Adorama called Ask David Bergman, where I'm teaching photography on YouTube. So that keeps me pretty busy. I have to keep producing those. I write and produce those myself. And then, I have one-off gigs that come up. I'm a Canon Explorer of Light, so I will do occasional speaking gigs for them, and other shoots come up. I have a corporate shoot in a couple of days that I'm doing. So other things come up. And then, in my free time, what I like to do? I like to go to concerts. I like to go see stand-up comedy. I spend time with my daughter whenever I can. She's in college now. So, I tend to keep pretty busy. There's a lot of stuff that photographers do all day long that would sound really boring if I listed out all the things, but I spend a lot of time sitting in front of a computer working on the business. Right now I'm paying my taxes. I'm doing my taxes. That stuff just keeps you busy. Photographers, we run a small business just like every other small business. So there's always something to do.
Always keep you busy, man. That's how I love staying busy. I have to.
Yeah. That's better than the alternative. I'd rather be too busy than not have any work. So there you go.
I agree. So we're going to move on to our Melodies and Memories section that we do. We do every week with when we have songwriters on. I'm like, it'd be kind of fun to do this with you. So we're going to play probably a 5-second clip of a song. First memory you have with that song. Maybe it could be at a concert, maybe like the angle you shot it at or something like that. Mm-hmm. We'll share a quick little story with it. Let's see, what color first? Do yellow. So I know you spent some time with Bare Naked Ladies. All been done, man. When that song would come on every night, kind of what memory did you have with that song? You know what?
Maybe not particularly that song, but just my time with them on the road was so fun because those guys are just, I'm not gonna say they don't care because obviously they care a lot, but they're just so easygoing and so loose. I remember I've just started with them and I made the goofiest photo of them. They just looked ridiculous. This was back when Steve was in the band. So Steve and Ed together, and they were doing something totally silly on stage. And I remember afterward, I just started, it was like my third show. And I showed one of them the picture. I think it was Ed. I showed him the picture and I go, oh, that moment was hysterical during the show. I go, too bad nobody will ever see this. And he goes, why not? And I go, well, it's kind of silly, And he goes, the sillier, the better, man. So they loved it. They loved being goofy on stage. And they loved capturing that. And they would put out pictures of them. So my memories of just touring with them were just that kind of thing where, the images weren't really curated very closely. There was no approval process really. And it was just super fun because those guys would let it all hang out. And so whenever I hear I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Bare Naked Ladies because they were just so fun to tour with. I still see them every once in a while. I just saw Stephen Page a few months ago. His Stephen Page trio actually opened for The Who. For 5 dates, and he brought me out to document it at the show here in New York. So I still see him every once in a while, and still the same fun people they always were.
It was cool because I was listening to an interview that you recently did, and how you were talking about how he did in one song, he did a jump, how he used to do it, and then when you out with him when he was with The Who, he did that jump again. You right there in position. So going back to studying your artist and knowing your artist. I
have the relationship with him where I actually, before the show, as soon as I saw the set list, I kind of asked him, and this was kind of my way of like reminding him. I was like, oh, do you still do the jump? This was in Brian Wilson. I go, do you still do the jump? And he goes, yeah, sometimes, So like, I don't know if he was going to do it that night already, but I kind of planted that in his head and I was ready for it if he did. And he did, and it all worked out.
Got
So that
the
was
shot.
nice that I was able just to like plant that in his mind.
I love that. All right, go ahead, hit green. This is gonna be a fun one. So I had picked Willie Nelson on the road again, just as a one-off song, because one of my favorite photos you took was of Willie and Luke Combs sitting at the table on the bus. I just love that photo because you can just tell that they're sharing wisdom with one another, and he's just passing on so much to Luke. But when you hear Willie Nelson on the road, man, where does that take you?
It's, you know what, honestly, I was going to talk about that photo because that moment was, I mean, I'd never met Willie before, and I'd photographed him maybe once or twice. I think I photographed him when he got in the Songwriters Hall of Fame like 20 years ago. But Luke played, I forget the name of the event. It was on July 4th. It was Willie's Picnic or something like that, some big annual event that Willie has. And it was just one of those experiences where, you know, I had heard like Willie wanted Luke to come on his bus after the show. And this is one of those things where I started talking to our personal security, our Luke security, my friends. And I was like, I got to get on that bus with him, right? Like I got to get a picture of him on Willie Nelson's bus. Right. And so, you know, once it was ready to happen, I just went on there, and then immediately, of course, I didn't start shooting, you know, I was respectful. And then Willie's sort of guys were there hanging with him. And I was kind of like, oh, is it okay to, you know, they were like, yeah, fine, no problem. So I very quietly, you know, cause yeah, Luke and Willie were just shooting the stuff, you know, like they were having a good time. And it really was, again, one of those kind of moments like the Bon Jovi living on a prayer, where I was like, I can't believe I'm the third person here. You know, it's Luke Combs and Willie Nelson, and I'm the closest person to this. And yeah, I got to document it, and I made that image, and it was quite an experience. And by the way, anything you've heard about Willie Nelson's tour bus, or what you imagine about Willie Nelson's tour bus, doesn't happen on his actual bus. There's another bus where all that goes on.
That's the band bus.
Yeah, well, no, there's a completely separate bus. He actually has a company that sells, you know, cannabis and all that kind of stuff.
Willie's Reserve.
There you go. And so that is all on a separate bus. So we were not in the middle of all of that when that was happening.
So it wasn't like a Toby Keith song or anything while you were up there.
Yeah, no, there was none of that.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, hit the other one. All right, this is one of my favorite Luke songs, written by Jonathan Singleton. That's why I love it so much. But dude, Beer Never Broke My Heart. When you hear that song, where does that take you?
You know what? I think that song is, so far in his career, obviously Luke's very early in his career, I think that's Luke's Living on a Prayer, right? I mean, he usually plays it at the end of the night. It's usually the last song of the encore, and the crowd goes nuts. It's really a rock song. I mean, I know it's got a country twang to it, but it's a big rock anthem. People sing along. The crowd goes nuts. I don't care if there's 500 or 50,000 people there. Everybody's on their feet the whole show, and they just go nuts. So that's one of those things where, again, just like Living on a Prayer, sometimes my friends will ask me is, how could you hear Living on a Prayer every single night? How could you hear Beer Never Broke My Heart every single night? And I say, look, I think listening to it on the radio, or, you know, on the recorded version every night, I could understand how that would maybe get old after a few thousand plays. But that live experience, that concert experience, one of the reasons I love it so much is there is an energy in that room that I don't feel that anywhere else. I don't know where else in anybody's life you can experience that, where, again, everybody all comes together and everybody's singing along the same lyrics, that same moment. And Luke's just up there, you know, leading the crowd. And it's such a fun experience. And to be able to be in that inner circle and document that, whether I'm, you know, on stage shooting the crowd, you know, with Luke in the foreground, or if I'm in the crowd in the middle of it and photographing Luke, it's just the most fun thing ever. And that's why, you know, if you ask me like when I'm going to retire or whatever, it's like, retire. What's that even mean? I'm going to do this as long as I'm physically able, because that's such an adrenaline rush. You can't replicate anywhere else. I'm going to do that till the day I die, I think.
Well, I love it because you're putting your own art into it. I mean, you are an artist as a photographer, and just you're creating the art, running around, taking all these pictures. And honestly, those high energy songs, get your adrenaline going, and you just I love it.
It really is. It really is so much fun every single night.
All right, let's go ahead and do that green one, the last one. I had to throw some Bon Jovi in.
Gotta have the Jovi.
Give Love a Bad Name, man. Where does that take you?
Yeah, you know, I remember there was one leg of a tour where they did that song first. It was the very first song, and I thought it was such a great opener because everybody knows that song, right? So there was a video intro that, most bands have that, a big video intro. The lights go out, the video plays, and then I forget if there was I don't think there was anything before it. It was just boom, shot through the heart. And that beginning of that song, and everybody would go crazy, right? And so that song always gets me going because that's where the adrenaline really kicks in. I mean, obviously it's a legendary song. It's a great song that everybody knows. I don't care how old you are. Everybody knows that song. So yeah, that brings me right back to that. I remember when it was the first song on the set, and I thought it was a perfect opener.
Yeah.
Dude,
that would be awesome.
That's like Kid Rock used to open with Ball of the Wall, and I was the same way. I was like, dude, that's the song you got to open with every night because it just blows it away and just sets the pace for a show, man.
Got to start strong.
Yeah. Sets the foundation right there.
Yep, for sure.
All right, buddy. Well, before we let you go, we always like put everybody on the hot seat real quick. So we put 60 seconds on the clock. We'll see how far we get through all these. But your first CD or vinyl you ever purchased?
First CD, I bought 2 of them. My very first 2 CDs were Journey, Raised on Radio, and Sting, Dream of the Blue Turtles.
Love it.
Okay.
What's your best vacation spot? So if you get a time off, where are you going to head to?
It's a little far, but my favorite place in the world is actually Melbourne, Australia.
Okay.
Love it. Who has the best pizza? You've been everywhere. Who's had the best pizza you've ever had?
Oh, goodness. You know what? I usually say when my friends are coming to New York and they say, what's the best New York pizza? I say the closest pizza place to wherever you are. There's so much great pizza here. Any corner pizza place has got great pizza in New York City.
I love that. What kind of contest would be fun to judge?
Ooh, contest would be fun to judge. Air drumming.
Ooh, all right.
That would be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
If you could live in any time period, when would it be?
You know what? I love it right now. I mean, we got all kinds of problems, obviously, but I'm having a great time. So I'm happy right where I am.
I'm gonna say close second would have to be the 90s though.
The 90s were fun. 80s were fun too. 80s were probably maybe even a little better, I think.
What's the best Wi-Fi name you've ever seen?
The best what?
Wi-Fi name you've ever seen. So some people use like surveillance van or whatever. What's the best one you've ever seen?
Oh goodness. In New York City, I'm right in Midtown New York City, and there's all kinds of ones that I probably can't say on your show. But yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
What's the oldest thing you own?
Oh goodness. You know what? I have a rug in my apartment that my grandmother made for me when I was like 3 years old, and it's like it's like a Noah's Ark latch rug that is the silliest childlike thing, but it's from my grandmother from 50 years ago.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
What's one chore you don't like doing?
One chore I don't like doing: paying taxes.
Yes, we agree with that.
Just did that.
If you could relive any day in your life.
Whoop, I lost you there for a second. What was that? Oh, I am not hearing you now. I don't know if you're hearing me.
Hang on 1 second.
There you are. I hear you again now on a different mic, but I hear you. Not hearing you.
You hear us now?
Yes, now I hear you.
I don't know. That was
We had like a blip.
Yep, little blip. The gremlins
That's okay.
doing on the wires. What was that last question?
Let me get her mic. All right, there we go.
If
All
you
right.
could relive one day in your life, what day would it be?
Oh goodness.
Yeah, that's a tough.
One day in my life. Probably. Oh goodness, that's a tough one. You know what? I have so much fun every day. I don't know that I could pick one.
Right.
I could go with my daughter being born. I could go with that kind of, those kinds of things. But I like her as an adult now too. She's 19. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I right here being with you guys. This is my thing. There you go.
I think mine. If I had to think about it, mine would be my first
Yeah.
concert. I'd love to go back to that first concert.
First concert, that would be fun.
Relive that one more time.
Plant the
That would be
seed.
good. I actually got to work for Journey one night. I photographed them. And so that was kind of a full circle thing because it was my first concert in 1983.
Yeah.
And so I photographed them back in 2018. And that was, I'm not going to say that's the one day, but that was definitely a fun one to come full circle like that.
That's one thing I'm going to try
Definitely.
really hard for is I know Live Nation is producing the Kiss tour. And I'm like, since that was my first concert, I'm like, if I could get anything, if I get 3 songs on this last leg of 50 dates or whatever, I'm going to apply for everyone I can.
I photographed them once. I photographed them at an Olympics. I don't remember which Olympics it was. I did 5 of them. And I don't remember which one it was, but they were playing in either the opening or the closing ceremonies. But my funniest memory was I saw them being driven by in a golf cart, and it was right before the set, and they were all in makeup and the platform shoes and the whole thing. And I just saw them go by in a golf cart, and it was just very funny to me that, like, you know, these larger than life figures just in this little golf cart. It was very funny. With like Gene hanging off the back, you know, it was very funny.
It's probably ridiculous.
That would have been a photo to have.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know why I don't have a picture of it. I think I probably didn't have my cameras with me at that second because I was walking somewhere, but it was just a funny moment. That. And this was before cell phones, so it had to be early 2000s.
Yeah.
So the last question on our hot seat is one of my favorites. So you've been around the world. You got to do some really cool stuff. What's something that's still on your bucket list that you still want to accomplish or still want to do?
Ooh, still on the bucket list. I mean, I accomplished one of them a few years ago with Luke, and that was to go to Saturday Night Live. That was a fun one because he played SNL, and I grew up watching SNL, obviously. Yeah. And so to go to Studio 8H and have that access to photograph there was pretty cool. Bucket list. You know what? I'd love to photograph. This is really obscure, but there's a British pop band that I've been a fan of since the 80s called Level 42.
Okay.
And Mark King is the bass player and lead singer, and he's one of the best bass players in the world. He's a slap bass player. And I'm finally going to see them for the first time right after our European tour. They happen to be playing a couple hours away from where I'm going to be. So I'm going to go see them. When we get closer, I might try to reach out and see if I could photograph them. That would be super fun. But just seeing them was on the bucket list. So I'm kind of excited about that. That's a little obscure, but that's a big one for me. I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Oh man, it's cool to see how you get excited. I mean, because you go to thousands or hundreds of concerts a year on probably or whatever that you do, but it's cool that you still get excited to go to concerts too as a fan.
I mean, music it brings us all together, doesn't it? You know, it's just one of those things and to be able to, again, be that close and experience it from unique angles and to document it and to be the eyes of, I always say, I want my pictures to the people who are there. I want them to remember the show when they see my pictures, and the people who weren't there, I want them to wish they had been there. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the responsibility that I put on myself. And to be able to do that every night is such a blessing, really, to have that experience, to be able to do it. And so I got nothing to complain about.
I love that.
That's amazing.
Well, buddy, we ran a little over tonight. I apologize for that, but we want to thank you so much for spending an evening with us. And this show was phenomenal.
It's all good. It's all good. It was fun to be here with you guys. I appreciate it. Always fun to talk about this stuff. I should mention, I'm actually up for an award and I need people's help because there's the iHeartRadio Music Awards is coming up in a few weeks. And they have a few categories that are social categories that are voted on by the fans. And they have a favorite tour photographer category. And I am nominated. I was nominated last year. I lost to Harry Styles photographer. He's a very good photographer. But Harry Styles fans there are a lot of them, and they vote probably very heavily. So I need Luke fans and Bon Jovi fans and all those people to go out and vote. Wow. So it's on the iHeart site. I think it's iHeart.com/awards, and you can vote every day. You get 50 votes a day if you go to that site. There's honestly, I mean, look, yes. The cliche is true. It's an honor to be nominated. I'm going to go to the award show again. I went last year. It's in LA. I get to walk the red carpet. It's super fun to be on that side of it and not, be working. But there's so much great talent out there. That's what makes me really happy that it's all the other photographers who are nominated are really incredibly talented, and they're, everybody's got their own style and they work with their artists. And so I'm just happy to see the category being recognized by a major, this is a major award show. It's going to be on Fox. Our category is probably being done earlier in the day, but it's a big award show that I get to attend, and to have them recognize tour photography, it's photography and stills and video. I love that. Again, going back to trying to bring respect to tour photography, and the fact that the category is even represented means a lot to me. And so whether you vote for me or not, go vote for whoever you want. And I'm really glad to be a part of that.
Well, and I love that as being, for one, we're going to put the link in everything we share. We'll make sure the link is in there for where you guys can vote. We'll push that out. But it's really cool that it is, like you said, it's being recognized, because with everybody says social media was a bad thing, but I think for photographers in a way, social media was a good thing, because now everybody has a tour photographer. They need a content person out there on the road for them, because bands have TikTok, they have all this other stuff, and they need that. So for finally to have that as like the touring industry to recognize that as an entity.
I do feel like we sort of went through a curve, right? Where it used to be in the old days, there weren't that many photographers. So bands would hire photographers to really document on film, back in the 60s and 70s. And that way they could document their life in the early days and the backstage stuff that nobody saw. And even if those pictures didn't get seen for a long time, we only discover them later. But then there were a few decades there where it really kind of went away. Everybody was getting into photography. There were too many photographers. And now, like you said, with the rise of social media, artists do understand that they need photography. Some of them are fine with cell phone pictures, and that's okay. The smart ones, I think, bring in a real photographer to craft really good images and be part of that whole PR and marketing leg of a tour and produce those images for the fans. And so I'm really glad to see that it's come back around, and I hope it stays here for a long time.
Yeah, I love it. And it's on an upswing, especially now that it has its own award category. That's
amazing.
We're gonna get you that win. I promise. We're gonna do everything we can to get you that win. So,
thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, David, for spending an hour or so of your time with us. I know it's very valuable how busy you are at times. So thank you so much for spending this evening with us. We appreciate it so much, David.
My pleasure. Great being here with both of you.
All right, buddy. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Hopefully I'll get out to shoot the pit this year, man.
Come on out. Come on out.
I might have to get on that Chicago waiting list.
Do it.
All right, buddy. Well, you have a good night, man. We'll talk soon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Right,
thanks.
Bye. God, that was
so
awesome.
Fun. Yeah, that was great.
This is so cool what he does for photographers just getting to learn. I mean, because not only the shoot the pit, but the Ask David Bergman segment he does for the Adorama. Yeah, it's just really cool because you can submit questions because all of us have questions. I mean, I think I got so many questions. I shoot, I don't know how many shows.
Oh, now. I know. I think the fact that he's willing to like share his craft and like teach people what he does and how to do it and the right way and coach them and mentor them. I think that's incredible because not a lot of people like to do that. It is such a craft and like a coveted, position to be able to have a job like that. And like, I'm sure there's a million people that would love to do it, but to be able to share that with people and actually mentor them is incredible. I just think it shows the type of person that he is. And I think that that's fantastic.
Tony, that's amazing. I saw that you're doing was Nashville and Ireland or something like that. Dude,
Dublin, I think. Yeah.
That would be amazing to go out there. Just to be able, what he's doing is in the stadiums to be able to do that and run around is just so cool.
Yeah.
Just love that. But yeah. Jackie says, honestly, on my bucket list is shoot the pit too. I agree.
We're working on it. So one of these days.
Definitely want to get out there and do that because just amazing things like I said he's doing. And some of the photos over the years he's taken, I just wanted to ask him if he had anything just laying around. Yeah. You know how my mom has totes of photos everywhere. I'm sure he has
for sure.
Boxes just archived of photos. So
yeah. We'll get there. We'll get you there one, Sarah. We're gonna get him there one.
I'm gonna do it. Definitely. So
for sure.
It's awesome. All right. So we asked each other the same questions. We're gonna do that again this week. So the first one.
Do you want to do that, or do you want to talk about our show yesterday?
We can do either or.
Let's talk about yesterday. It was so great.
I'm so worn out from it.
We just got back from Nashville. We had our first show of the year at Live Oak, our writers round. It was fantastic. Everybody killed it, man. We had, who did we all have on
16 artists. I mean, I could say her name. I don't know if I can name them all. Oh, I can, but just some of we were kind of on the way home this morning, last night, I guess. I don't know. We drove halfway and stayed a little bit. That's why we're a little worn out tonight.
Yeah.
We're kind of talking about our favorites of each round, which is nice, just to kind of like work that out and see. But it was hard to pick a favorite this one because everybody was just on top
Everybody
of it. There's on point and it's amazing.
We had some newbies there. We had some people that have been playing for years. So I think it was a well-rounded round.
It was great. It was great to even close out and having Evan and Lewis as the last two because that was like kind of talk about full circle moments every week. That was kind of like a full circle moment for me. Was because like I introduced Evan and Lewis together. I got Evan the gig to open up for Lewis. And it was just cool to see them work together and to be like, all right, man, that was cool that I was able to pair them up. And then the friendship they stuck up together and was able to work out. So it's just so cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Trying to keep up with these comments. You guys are awesome
I
with the
know.
comments tonight.
I
Thank
know
you guys so
David's
much.
incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing. So many of you guys have been able to work with him. I know Aaron's been talking about trying to work with him for years, the last couple of years anyway, and he's begging me to go. So we'll figure.
Well, we were gonna do it. I was on par to probably be able to do Shoot from the Pit this summer, and then all of a sudden my car said, "No, we're not gonna do that this summer."
We lost a vehicle recently.
So my car, I think, decided that it was against me doing it this summer, but we'll see what happens.
It saw too many trips to Nashville and Eric Church concert.
Yes. I have
It
to
was
finally
tired.
retire. This is the second car Eric Church has retired.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, actually.
So, but no, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. We had a blast. Just be able to talk with David.
Loved seeing all your comments.
Yeah, about his journey. Just kind of what got him into photography, and just coming up into it. And I mean, we almost lost him to music early on, music producer. I mean, it's just so cool that he kind of was able to make that whole full circle moment and come back to music with his photography and kind of put it all together. So, but we want to wish David nothing but the best, and can't wait to see what he accomplishes in 2023 and beyond with his photography. Like I said, if you guys have not followed him or voted for him, you got to check him out on all of his socials. Check out the show notes. They'll be posted in there. And thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Next week, or actually this week, later on this week, we have 2 shows again this week. Bowen Young is coming back and joining us on Friday. That's actually, we were talking about shows that we dreaded shooting. That was my nightmare, was coming home from that Bowen Young show, knowing that I'm like, oh my God, the lighting was terrible at that show.
It was so dark. It was terrible.
I still haven't even shared the photos from that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I will. Maybe a couple of them. There's a couple good ones out there, but I was like, man, that was one of the shows. Like, photographers probably were tuning in tonight. You have that show that just kind of it discourages you in a way. I mean, you just leave there, but you just know next time you go out, you just got.
I equate. So it's funny being a nurse. Like, I equate it to IV starts, right? So like, you get a really good run of IV starts. You could start an IV with literally with your eyes closed, and then all of a sudden you like.
You can start an IV on me with your eyes closed.
Miss 3 in a row, and you're like, okay, I'm done. I can't do IVs anymore. Like, what's wrong with me? I mean, it's the same thing. You just kind of gotta. Sometimes you have good days, sometimes you have bad days, and sometimes you have good lighting, and sometimes you have bad veins. So,
I think, honestly, if there is photographers still listening, and you guys have any tips or tricks, let me know. I think one of the biggest challenges is
red and blue lights; those are terrible.
Well, that we face is new venues that we've never shot at before because we don't know.
We're just not used to it. Yeah.
The first time I ever shot at Carol's Pub in Chicago, it was I think I had some of the worst pictures. The second time or third time I shot there, it got a little better. Just recently, I shot Drew Parker.
Well, that's kind of like what David said. Like, oh, if you want to come out and shoot one show, I can't remember who he said it was for, but he said, "Can I shoot 2 or 3?" Because by the third time, you kind of got a better idea of what you're working with, kind of thing. So,
and definitely one thing like I learned from David that I use, like I even talked about during the show, is study your subject. Whoever you're shooting, don't go into it blind. If you land Luke Bryan at an amphitheater over the summer and you only get 3 songs, go and Google set list. I mean, you can find Luke Bryan's set list everywhere because normally those shows, those tours, it's the same set list. You can see what 3 songs you get to shoot. Then go to YouTube and Google Luke Bryan, whatever that song is, and watch him perform that song on YouTube. And then okay, if I'm only shooting from the pit, to be left pit, right pit. You know where to angle yourself, where to go. And that's just something I stress. And I think photographers already know this, but if you don't do this, definitely know your subject before you go into the shoot, because if not, you're going in there blind, and I don't think you're going to get the results that you would get if you kind of knew where to be. I mean, especially if you only get the 3 songs, like most of us sometimes get. So, but yes, always study your subject and know who you're getting ready to shoot. So, anything else?
Nope.
Yeah, it's a fun episode.
Yeah, thanks guys for hanging in there. So. We had lots of folks.
All right, y'all. Have a good night, and we'll see you guys Friday. We're going to be having our
The Melodies and Memories podcast with Jillian and Aaron Shriver, brought to you by Arlo Revolution. As we close the book on another chapter, remember, music gives us soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and life to everything. Next week, Jillian and Aaron connect more melodies and memories with the fans and artists they love. Thank you for being a part of this musical journey, and we will see you next time on the Melodies and Memories podcast with Jillian and Aaron Schreiber.